In your opinion, MJ, where do most Gen AI initiatives break down? Is it at strategy, tooling, people, incentives? What do you think it breaks down?
I think it breaks down a lot of areas. There's many ways. One of the things is the level of control that's being exerted. As we talked about, a lot of larger companies, some of my peers who I've had the privilege of sharing, some classrooms with, have talked about how they're only authorized to use Copilot, and so they're not allowed to do anything else because there's a fear of like data and privacy and all these things. Which I'm not saying that fear is wrong, but when you're not allowed to use the latest models, you're just not going to be able to learn as much, right? So that's one, the element of control where it's very centralized versus figuring out how to decentralize it, let people experiment, let people fail, let people make a few mistakes, think through the risks that's actually involved. While not just like let's all reduce risk all the way down to zero, but actually think about what level of risk you're willing to tolerate. So that's one big area of where it fails. The second area is measuring ROI, because generative AI has been around. There's a lot of, I think, confusing information out there about the returns. So obviously, anytime you want to put a new thing in, it's got to go like you got to have like a business proposal. You've got to see returns. What are the costs? What's the cost benefit analysis? I'm not sure that's the right way to think about it in some ways, right? I think that's one element, but generative AI has inherent challenges because it is so disruptive and new. One is that a lot of times people who are saying I have increased in productivity or I've seen these increases are not measuring it the right way. When you look at the actual data, there's been studies that have said if you actually take into account the amount of time people spend writing the prompt, editing the prompt, waiting for the model to return, reviewing the answer, copy and paste it into a thing, right? Like that actually takes more or equal time than you just doing it yourself. It just feels like it's shorter time, but if you actually count the time, it may not be super beneficial. So there's a lot of studies around there. The other thing is this idea of measuring ROI without measuring things that are equally important that are qualitative. So one of the things that we were talking about is the rate of change, right? The rate of change and the level of disruption, that how much you can disrupt your own work and how you do new ways of working. There's no real way to quantify that, but that is something that I look to as a way to measure AI. If I'm able to do things like, sure, this is going to cost me more in the short run because I have to pay OpenAI, sorry. However, if I'm able to work fundamentally differently and be able to do things that I wasn't able to do before, isn't that better for the business? And also, you should expect a failure rate of 75 to 80% on the experiments. Not all experiments are going to pay off. And so this very scrutinizing of like financial metrics, I think is also where it breaks down. And the third part it breaks down, we've already talked about, is when you haven't addressed concerns and you're meeting with the resistance, but it's sort of undertone and no one's really telling you the truth, and people are actively working against you because they think they're going to lose their jobs. That's where also it breaks down. There's the people side that breaks down, there's the financial and the ROI side that breaks down, and then there's the centralized control that also causes the breakdown.